Welcome to today's session, and thank you for joining us today as part of the VistaVu Analytics series or Analytics Week series titled Reporting Reset, SAP Business by Design. My name is Nuruddin, and I'm a Customer Success Manager here at VistaVu Solutions. I will be your moderator for this webinar, and I will be joined by my colleague, Emma Nicholas, who will be leading the live demonstrations shortly. Today's session is focused on a topic that we know matters a lot to many SAP Business by Design users and customers, and that's reporting. How to better access it, how to better navigate it, personalize it, and ultimately make it more useful for your day-to-day work. Okay, so let's jump right in. Give me a second here. Okay. All right. To give you a quick sense of how we'll spend our time together, here's today's agenda. So Emma will be taking us through standard reporting in SAP Business by Design, including how users typically access reports and some of the core capabilities available within the system. We'll move into working with reports more practically. We're going to be looking at areas like navigation, creating custom views using selection criteria, and personalizing reports so they better support the way you work. We also understand that there are times when the standard report functionality or feature might not support your unique needs. Emma will speak briefly on what's possible through custom reports, through OData reports. And just an FYI, we will not be demoing this part. We'll just be, pointing you to a direction of how VistaVu can support any of those types of complex needs. Okay. And once the demo is complete, I will come back to guide us through the Q&A session, and I will briefly introduce the next session in the VistaVu Analytics Week before we wrap up. Again, our goal today is to keep this as practical, as useful, and grounded in the real reporting questions customers often have. So please feel free to use the chat window to send in your questions, and we have time reserved at the end of the demonstrations to take your questions. Okay. All right, let me quickly introduce today's speakers. As I mentioned, my name is Nuruddin Ekaine, and I'm a Customer Success Manager at VistaVu Solutions. I work closely with customers to help ensure they're getting value, maximum value from their investment in cloud enterprise systems, and to support conversations like this, like the one we're having today around user experience, around adoption, and of course, business outcomes. I'm also very pleased to be joined by Emma Nicholas, who is a senior SAP solution and development consultant. Emma brings a deep product knowledge and hands-on expertise, especially when it comes to how SAP Business by Design works in practice, both on the front and the back end. So Emma will be taking us through the live system demonstration and showing some of the reporting capabilities directly in the system. Okay. So with that, welcome again, everyone. And let's first ground ourselves in why we want to have this conversation today. Okay, so this slide really gets to the heart of why we felt this session was important. Over multiple NPS cycles and direct customer conversations, reporting has consistently ranked as a top ERP pain point. And when we listen closely to that feedback, a few themes tend to come up again and again. First is the fact that reporting often feels very hard to use and difficult to scale as your data grows as an organization. Second is that standard reports do not always seem to line up with real business processes. So users often know the answers they need, but they are not always sure the report in front of them is the best way to get there. And third, there is often uncertainty around what SAP Business by Design reporting can and cannot do very well. In other words, where does standard reporting work very well, and where do you need a different approach? So today's session is really about bringing some clarity to that conversation. Okay? So on the flip side, if by the end of today's session, you come away with a clearer understanding of what's possible and how to make reporting more usable for your team, then we have done our job well. But if you feel otherwise, please let us know. We want to hear that feedback and support you as best and as much as possible. Okay? All right, today's goal. At a very high level, the goal for today is to showcase standard reporting in SAP Business ByDesign and help you understand the best practices and tools that are available to effectively access, navigate, and again, like I always say, personalize your reports. So with that foundation, the best next step is to move from talking about this to actually showing you in the system. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Emma, who will take us into the system and walk through the live demonstration with us. So Emma, over to you.
Thank you, Nero. Let me share my screen. Here. So we have SAP ByDesign on our screen here. And SAP ByDesign reports are built and modified by key users, or what we call administrators. And they use the business analytics work center to do these changes, and it makes it applicable to all the different users of the system, provided that they have the appropriate authorizations to access those reports. So business analytics work center is located here, and then you click on design reports. Now, this list of reports contains standard SAP reports that comes out of the box, as well as reports that are custom made by in this particular system, in our demo system. So the users you'll see here created by SAP, and then you'll also see different users that's created different reports in the system. Now, this list under business analytics design reports are all the reports that are in the system, regardless of area. So there's sales in here, there's purchasing, there's finance reports, manufacturing reports in here. Now, some of the key pieces here on this particular screen that you want to take a note of is the name of the report, because it's has the ID. There's a brief description, and there's also a data source name. So we will focus mainly in this demo, we'll focus mainly on the sales order volume report and creating different views from it. But before I do that, I want to highlight a few other features on this screen. So if I select one of these reports, you will see assigned work centers down at the bottom section, bottom half of the screen. And what this means is this particular report is accessible by users that have been provided authorization to these different work centers. And when you go to these work centers, you go to the report list, you will see that this particular report is in that list to be accessed. There's also access context associated to different reports. So if you only need to see data for your reporting line, then that's the data that you'll only see, and you don't see the other groups' data. So that's all managed under the business user authorizations. Now, the other piece here that I want to highlight is the documentation section. Now, this launches a semi-technical document that is helpful for the technical users, or maybe the integrators or your report builders. Now, when you click this, I don't know if you'll see it. It should launch a different screen. Are you seeing that screen? No?
No, we can't see it yet.
Okay, so How about now? It
now we
should say
see.
report face.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the data that will appear when you click that magnifying glass, and you'll see here details about this particular report. There's restrictions already applied to the report, and you'll notice here the time frame. There's some default selection that's been specified. You got the characteristics or dimensions or data elements. You got the ID that is used in the reporting when you're doing the integrations. And then further down, you got parameters and selection screen, which is the selection criteria, which further filters the data that's presented from the data set. And then you have the set of key figures here when it's applicable. You also have a where used list. So if it's referenced by other reports, you'll see them here. So this part is something that, like as I mentioned, whoever's going to be building reports or integrations to reports will find handy. Let me switch back to all right. So now we're back here. Now if it's applicable, you can integrate it. You can click on the build OData queries to get an OData endpoint that represents the report, and you'll have access to the data. You can use that for RRS feeds, maybe your intranet web page, some other external applications that you want to use to display your report data from the system. Okay. So now what I want to move on to now is actually go into the sales order volume report and show you the different features and functionalities of the reporting screen in SAP. Now, I will select this report and launch it by clicking it here. And I'm accessing this as a key user and as an administrator. So whatever I create here will be available to the different users. So if I create a view or selection criteria or a bookmark, it'll be available by the other users in like when they launch it from their work center. Now I want to highlight on the top left section here of the screen, you'll see the selection, and if you click the drop down here, you'll see a group for corporate and a group for SAP. So the corporate ones are the ones built by your key users or administrators. And then the one in SAP is the one that comes out of the box. Now you can set the default by clicking on this manage button, and you'll just have to specify which selection you want launched when you launch the report. And then you just click save. And this is how you would clean it up as well. So if you have, like, for example, you want to get rid of this current year 2, just specify delete here, and you can remove that to just clean it up. Now you have the same list under view, and what the view means is really what does the report look like? So what does this display in the middle will look like? And now there's some predefined here as well. So you have a corporate group and then you have an SAP group, and same with the selection. You can manage that, delete the ones that you don't need. You can also rename them here to be a bit more meaningful, and set the default view that you want launched. Okay, so our default view is current year and order shipment details. Now let's talk about the selection area. So on the selection area, when the report was built, these data elements have been defined as the fields that you could filter the report on. So you would narrow down the data set to get the data that you would need. So in here, I'm just going to pick time frame. You click on this list, and you will have a selection list presented to you that's applicable to that data element. And this data element is a time frame or a date field. So you have options for relative values that you would use, that you could use for dates. So it's here you have current year, you have last year. So we should have last year here. So we have last year, and then you have current year and last year. So this is a bit more dynamic, so you don't have to specify the individual dates. So you don't have to go Jan 1, 2026 to December 31st, 2026. And then if the next year comes along, this report, since it's using a relative value, it'll know to use Jan 1, 2027 and December 31st, 2027 for the report. Now you do also have an option to set absolute values. So you have an option for the date, you have between, less than, greater than, equal to. So you have those options, and you can also add more. So if it's specific data that you're trying to do. So this list is dynamic based on the data element. So for example, I'm going to click this list for employee responsible. So this is now a list of all the employees that I have in the system. And then you can filter the list based on that. Now, once you have changed your selection criteria, you can save that for later use, and you don't have to set it in the future. And then what you would do is select it from the list here. Okay. Now, if you were creating it in a different work center, for example, a sales order report list is where you launch the report. When you save a selection criteria or view, this dropdown will have another option for your own views and your own selections. And those are only visible to you. Okay. So now let's move on to the views. So there's quite a bit of features on the views here that are not utilized. So what the view represents are the columns and data elements that are shown on the actual report. So in this middle area here. So currently we have account, sales order, and sales order item. If I want to remove a row or a data element, I could just click this and then click on remove field. Now, and then, so if I remove that, if I want to add more columns, you just click this plus sign by row fields and select the different characteristics or data elements that you want to add. So in this particular demo, I'd like to add the city and the country region. And now you don't see it here because it's in a hierarchy, but if we expand this node, you'll see the data. So this is the sales order number. You got the city here and the country region. You could also move things around. So it goes like, I want to have a different kind of report, right? So I'm going to say I want it by country and city, but since I only have the one country here, I don't really need that, right? So I'm going to remove that field. Now you just have cities here. Okay. So what you can do now is you can save this view as your as a different view. So you'll call it orders by city. Actually, it'll be sales by city. And then save this. You can set it as a default if it's that's the default you want, or if somebody's only requested, like, hey, I just want a report, doesn't really need to be for everybody. It'll just be for, for me in the interim. Now, what else can we do with this report? You can actually have groupings at the column level here. So you do that by adding column fields on the key figure section here at the bottom left. So if we add the month, for example, that would be a good example to break down the numbers, right? So I'll just go month, and you'll see here that it's grouped. So the total now has a breakdown for April and March. So you have the numbers for April and March, and then you have the total for the 2 months over here. And then you have net value now, and you have April and March. Now you can change the way this looks by moving this dimension before the key figure. And then now you'll see the period here first, right? So in the month of April, here's your total, here's your net value, fulfilled quantity and freight, and then invoice amount, same with March. And if you scroll to the very end here, you'll see the totals for each of those key figures, without the dimension, the month, calendar, year dimension. Okay. Now, I want to clean this up a little bit because it's a little bit too long. So I want to remove some key figures here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click this button here under column fields and expand the key figure node and remove the fields that I don't need. So I just want the net value without freight. Okay. So now it's a little bit cleaner. We got this. Now, what you could do now is highlight some of the data. You do that by clicking on the three buttons here under the key figure, and you'll see an option for conditional formatting. Now here you would define how you want to see it. So what we want to do is we want to put something that's over 50,000 as green so that it's highlighted for me, or you could do another way. So I'm just going to identify the average or above average sale. So if the number's above the average for the city, I guess, in this particular thing, then I want it to be green. So now you can specify data or result. The data means this piece here. The result is the result line. Okay, so this result line here, which is the total. So, and then you can indicate arrow, traffic light, or background color. We're going to go background color, and then I'll say greater than 50,000. And I want to make it green. And then you need to make sure you set it as active. Okay, so now you've highlighted that your sales in Odessa is above average of the sales that you guys have. And then you would edit the conditional formatting here, and you can add more conditional formatting in here if it's less than something. Now let's look at the other options. You got the arrow and the traffic light. So I'll pick the arrow. I like seeing this because it looks nicer. So I forgot to pick trend increasing or upward. We could say strong upward and click OK. Then you'll see an arrow going up. So it depends how you want to see the report. If you want, if you want the colors to pop, then you do the background color. If you just need some indicator that it's trending up or down or from the threshold that you specified, then you could just use the arrow keys. There's other images as well that's available there. There's not too many, but it's so here you just have 5 here, right? Trend increasing. Let's just pick this one.
Quick one, Emma. Just wanted to remind the audience that you can send in your questions. If you've sent one already, we've received it and we'll take it in the Q&A segment of the webinar. Okay. Thank you. Emma, please continue.
Thank you. Now there's the hierarchy. I'd like to kind of move on to the hierarchy section here. So you specify this or you set this in this gearbox. By clicking this gearbox, you have the way the table is displayed. These are the grid lines. It's really the most common ones that this gets modified on. There's the chart if you want to display the chart. These are where you would set the settings for it. And then the hierarchy. So the hierarchy is what I want to focus on right now. We're setting it as a row, and we said standard, and its initial expansion level is only for number 1. So what we would want to do is we could say it's fully expanded, or you can specify up to what level. Okay, so if I go level 2 and then click apply here, you'll see that it's expanded to the customer, right? So we open that up, and this is the particular sales order. So, so I pick it. Now I want to go fully expanded, and I click apply. Now it's showing you per service order. Okay. Now, I'm gonna get out of there. So I wanted it like this, and I'm gonna go save it. Since I've already saved it as sales by city, I'm gonna click save here, and it's just overriding my view that I already saved. Okay. Now, there's some features around bookmarks that a lot of our clients have not used, but it's really handy. So what a bookmark does is it puts together the selection and the view, and then you can easily access that set of data. So here I've created one earlier, last year's sales chart. So this one is I picked that, and then you'll see the selection up here has changed to last year, and it's the sales volume data chart. Now this one is a different kind of report. So if you're looking at it, like you see one report on the report list in ByDesign, but you actually have different kind of views on how the data is presented, which, you know, it's on its own a separate report. So depending on what you need, you can modify the views and the selection, and then you'll have the report that you would need. But the bookmarks are really handy. To create it is really simple. A key user or a regular user can do this. So what you would do is just click this plus sign here by the bookmark. You give it a name, sales by city, and here you would select the selection criteria. So it'll just be the current year for me. And then what view, and I want to pick the view that I made, which is the sales by city. And you can give it a description so that it has some notes in there. So now if I click on sales by city here, then I have access to all of that. I didn't have to change the hierarchy or change the coloring or whatnot. Okay. So now, as far as this report goes, another feature of the screen is the linking to other reports. So if you click on this number, this is a sales order number, you have this option to go to, and it gives you you're able to go to the sales order directly from this particular report, or the aging report, or the sales order volume report. Okay. Now, if you go into the customer and you click this option, you'll have an account overview because it's an account. And then you also have access to another report, which is the export to target group. So, or another function, sorry. So you have those capabilities just right there on the report. You don't have to go to a work center from the side to go find, like, for example, you want to see what the sales order transaction looks like. You could just access that from this particular link, and you'll be able to see that sales order. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the right-hand side of the of this screen. So you'll have your refresh option here. You have some actions available. So depending on the report, you'll be able to use that. You have an option to show a graph. So this is the table, and then you have your different graphs here. So we'll just go by city, or maybe a pie chart is probably better. So that one, you'll see the legend down here. And if you wanted to change this a little bit, you can go back to view and click this gearbox and then make modifications to your chart here. So these are, so you could, there's a row label and a column label. So, I mean, it's a pie chart, so that's not applicable. Let's go on maybe a bar chart, maybe a bar chart's better. So here you will see some numbers here. You can mouse over the reports. You can also show both. So if I click on the table and chart, so you'll have the chart on the side and then the table on the right-hand side. So that would be your option. If you just want the table though, you have to go back here and just click that. And then you'll have the table again. So let's bring back the table and chart. So I've changed it. I've changed it to, couldn't decide what kind of chart I want. So I'll just do the bar chart here. And then I'm going to save the view again. So oops, it's a save button, save. So that's my sales by city. Now you got the regular print option, and then you got the export options. So you got the email, so that it just gets sent as an attachment, and then download as a CSV or an Excel XML format or CSV file. And then you can navigate to Excel or a new window. If you do navigate to Excel, it's just like an SAP add-in in Excel. It'll ask you for a login, and then you're accessing the report and running the selection and the views from there. But it's in Excel. Okay. And now this add fields button lets you add fields that are not part of the report, but is part of the data. So if I click on add fields here, I'll show you the options that you have. Most of the time, it's extension fields that you want to add. So you have an ability to add extra fields in SAP ByDesign, and you have these extension fields that got created, and you want it to be part of this report. Then you can say display it on the report and or part of the selection. So that's how you would do that. And if you had custom key figures that you've created, so you got your own key figures here. So it's a sales order running. You can include that in the report. And then these are the other key figures that was excluded on the definition, but it's actually part of the data set. So, so you could use, so you could add more key figures in the system. So I'm just going to do a quick time check. All right, I kind of zoomed through that real quick. If, like I said, like Nuru said, if you have any questions, you can post it on the chat. And we'll address that after this second part of the demo. What I want to demo next is really like, what do you do with these reports after you've built these views and different selection criterias? Because you can do more to it. It's not just running reports. What we can do, the most unused, I think, is the use in KPIs. So you can actually build KPIs. I'm going to go launch the service order overview, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So the KPI cards, so you can put the report in the overview. So like some of these are reports in here, sales order volume extended. So these are reports that have been put in on the view. So as I'm looking at, oh, this is service orders. I'm going to go into sales orders. I think there's a little bit more in here. So under sales orders here, it could be your dashboard. So you start your day, you log in, you see your year-to-date values. This is a key figure. And then this net invoice value is also a key figure. And then the sales to date is basically the same as the year-to-date one, but it's these are key figures that when you see the number, you can, as somebody that, like if you were the controller or the sales manager or something like that, then you would be saying, hey, our numbers are not good, or we're doing good for the time that we're at the time that we're at, etc. So that, and these key figures are based on the reports that you've built or the existing reports that's there. The way you would create a key figure, so we'll go and create a key figure in the system. It's also on the Business Analytics Work Center, and there's a design KPI. Now, this is another administrative activity, right? So you'll need to have access to that. Let me just close this. And then in this system, there's already some pre-existing KPIs that you can use and you don't have to create. However, you do need to change some of these settings and see how some of these are adapted. And I'll show you shortly why that's the case. And it's really just to it's when you want to change the value for the values that are applicable to you. For example, if you want a target value or your budget numbers are going to be different from one company to another, right? So you would be adapting this KPI to have those target values. But what I want to show you is creating a new KPI. So we'll just click on new and then you'll just say KPI. And then you give it a name and then we'll just call it, well, we already have year-to-date sales and we already have current sales. So I want to call it, I don't know, this year's sales. Okay, and then you can give it a description. It's best practice to give it a description. So I would suggest that you do. And then also if there's any calculations, for example, if you know there's key figures in there that's are customized, then you would specify any explanation for the calculation. Like if there's an ROI number or something like that, and then you can specify what that's, how that's calculated. The KPI category, I would pick in this particular scenario, it'll be one of these sales group. So I'll just go sales and marketing sales. Now we're going to specify the report name. So we have the sales order volume. So I'm just keying it in here and it'll give me a lookup and the report. And I took note mentally of the ID. So I know I'm picking this because there's some with similar names. And so I'm just going to pick that. And the key figure we want to look at. So we want to look at the net value without freight. Okay, because we're just looking at sales numbers, don't really care about the freight. But maybe you do, I don't know, but you can pick the other key figures. But you have plenty to choose from, and these are key figures available on the report. And then you specify the selection criteria. So I want to see this year's sales, so I'm just going to pick current year. And then you can give it a different name here. So this year's sales numbers, and then decimal places. So we'll just say, no, I don't want any decimal places. And I'm just going to leave that minus sign before the value. I want to reverse the sign. You have value presentation, absolute data or delta or relative. So this, so the delta and delta relative is going to be against the value thresholds. So I'm just going to pick absolute because I want to see the number and then the currency. Now the context report. So this is the section at the bottom of the key figure. This is what shows up. So I'm saying, hey, I want to show the sales order volume and then the view of, what was that view that we made? Sales by city. And then the selection. So it'll be the current year. Okay. And you can change it, the display. You can put a name as well. So I'm just going to copy that. And then we move on to this value and thresholds. So this section is normally not fully utilized when our customers create the KPIs. So you have a target value. Most of the time, this is set to the budgeted amount. So we'll just say fixed value provided. And then I'm just going to say budget or target, right? And then let's say it's $1 million. Okay, good, enough zeros there. Okay. And then there's this thresholds. So this gives us a way to visually see where your current number is against the target. So I'll just say maximize, and you have other options here. Keep in range, maximize, or minimize. So maximize it. And then I have and then I would say by percentage. Okay. And then you would have the alert point. So this kind of tells you what numbers they kind of break on. So I'm just going to put it at 25% and then at 50%. Oh, 75%. Okay. Now the reference value is another place where you can compare the number. So if you wanted to compare your current year to date with last year's year to date, for example, then you could say, get the value from the report. So what I've seen is KPIs defined to have the same target and reference values, which is redundant. So, or this is set to not used. So it's underutilized, this option. So here we'll say, well, I'm going to use the same report, but it could be a different report. Sales order volume. And then the key figure is I'm going to compare the net value without freight. And then what is my selection? I'm going to pick last year. I think one of these last year's, maybe we want last year to date, right? So, and then you can give it a display, just last year sales. Okay. And then you also have a tolerance type, and it just gives you like different colors if you're up or down from the number. And then my tolerance level is 5%. So you can up that number to see what you want to see visually. So if you're like up 10% or down or that kind of stuff, when it's comparing last year's numbers. Okay. Additional contexts are this is where you define links to other reports in the system. So this is a sales report. So maybe I want to access the aging report from here. So aging. So I'm going to search for an aging report here for receivables. Yep.
Yeah. Quick time update. So we are at 10:45 right now. So you
Okay.
have like 2 more minutes for your demo.
Oh, no. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly pick this and let's just go initial. Oops. Do you want to save your changes? Yep. Almost got rid of that. So we've created a KPI called this. Oh, I forgot to give it a name. All right, so there's really plenty more to talk about, but I'm going to go wrap it up here and show you how you can add this to your work center. So you can go into the home section overview, and this would be all the KPIs that you want to access from different work centers, or you can go to the specific work center and add them in here. So so this is the service order. I keep picking the service order. If you wanted, we'll put it under the home work center in this time around. And if you are a key user and you want this KPI to be available for everybody, then you go into this avatar and then you go into adaptation mode. But if you want it to be just your own, so if it's just your own, you go into personalization mode. So I'm going to go into personalization mode because it's a bit quicker. So, and then you'll just have to find a plus sign here. Okay. You select KPI or report, because remember, we can add reports as well in here, but we'll pick the KPI and then we call it this year's sales. Okay, so I'm going to go apply this, and there's some settings associated to this. So I'm just going to quickly go through that as well. So you have this year's sales. So by default, it shows the report context. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide that because I just want to see the number. So I'm going to say, I'm going to collapse that. You can also make the card bigger or smaller. And then you have additional values you can show. So I'm going to say target and my reference. And then my refresh rate is 1 day, but you have other options here for your refresh rate. And then you can refresh as you please as well. So I'm going to click apply.
Quick,
And
quick interruption, Emma. Sorry, we have a question from Robin, and I
Okay.
feel it makes sense for us to address that. She had a previous question, so we will take that question as well in the Q&A
Okay.
session. But this question aptly ties to what you're talking about. Robin is asking, can you make these KPIs available for certain users? I would want my managers to see certain KPIs, but not everyone. So can you restrict these KPIs to certain users? Quickly.
Yes, you can. So you can, in adaptation mode, you can go to the specific work center where you would add that particular KPI. So that's one way to do that, and that your managers are the one that has access to it. The other thing too is when you build the report, you build it with the context of the reporting line unit. So they would only see, like, for example, sales for the people underneath them. Does that make sense? Or that location or that. So you have to build a report with context in mind.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Emma. And Robin, if you want to come off mute to further clarify that question, Sonia can help us do that, and you can come off mute. So just so you know, just indicate by raising up your hands, and we will help you with that.
Yeah, thank you for that. So it'd have to be in the reporting line, because if I put it in the work center itself, obviously we have a lot of people that use the various work centers. So again, if I just want a manager to see it, I just have to maybe look at his roles or
Correct. Yeah.
the user roles, and okay, so I might have to define those
There's
a bit
quite a
further.
bit of work centers that you can assign roles, the assignment to, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a business role already defined for the managers,
Yes.
then it'll be whatever those work centers are. That's where you would assign the KPI that you would build. And like I said, you can build a report with that context in mind, right? So when Bob the manager is accessing it, he will see just, sales for that area.
Right.
Or,
Right.
you know what I mean? So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Now, I think this is really the last piece that I would like to demo. So we can open it up for questions if that's okay, Nuru.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there any more questions?
Yes. So there is one more question from Robin, and I'm just going to switch to that here.
And I
Hey,
didn't give you
so-
I didn't give you contents on where I'm seeing that. And that format for the date is actually in our contracts report, because we do have a lot of sales orders that we put on contracts instead of individual sales orders. So that date format is coming out of a contract.
Okay, absolutely. So Emma, Robin's question is basically, is there a way to show a date without having, it looks like the date format she's talking about includes the date and the time. You know how you have 2007-04-01, T0700, all that time data attached to the date. So I guess the question is, how do we take that out? How do we take the time portion out of it to just show the date alone?
There's a way to do it under reports. There's oh no, it's on the data. Sorry, it's in the data source, and then you adapt it, and then you can pick the date. So I'll see if I can find one here. Design data sources. So it's in a different spot. And you said contracts. Maybe we can go into contracts here. So contracts. Wonder if this one, see this adapt button. So I'm just gonna speak to it conceptually here. So there's because right now that date field doesn't have these values. So what you could do is go into adapt, and then you go under dates, and then you can add the date in here, and then it'll give you an aggregation type. So it then it can be into like, you know, the month, day, or that kind of stuff. The other piece too is the fields that we can add in here, we're kind of limited to what is available for us to do. So it's a little bit tricky. If you know the data source, maybe we could look for it here. I don't know. Oh, it's in your system too. So I don't know. Is that a custom field? The date and time field?
I
that
don't
you're
believe
mentioning?
so. And maybe I can just take this offline because I don't want to sidetrack the meeting. But I think that would be very helpful for us to get rid of that, because when I extract that contract report and I broadcast that to management, it's very difficult for them to filter because those extra that time is in there.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, I'll just take that offline and we can move on to the next question.
Okay.
Absolutely. And Robin, I'll personally follow up with you on that question, so you have nothing to worry about. Okay, Emma, we have another question from Murray, and Murray says they use a lot of reports in Excel, and so they're asking if there's a way, if there's any drill down capability available directly in Excel, because a lot of their reports are, you know, run in Excel. I believe the Excel add-in.
I don't think it does it automatically, the hierarchy. I don't think you'll be able to do that, because when you export the report in ByDesign and there's a hierarchy, it just gives you blank spaces and it really just gives you data, right? So like you're talking about grouping, is that correct, Murray? Like grouping the data?
And Sonia, if Murray is still on the call, you could please unmute him, and so he can come up to provide any additional context.
No, this is, for example, it's a GL report with balances or activity summation for the period. In ByDesign by itself, you can then drill into transactions. Whereas in the Excel, I haven't been able, I don't know how to do that.
Oh, I see. Now, there is some limitations to what am I going to say, but you can actually have links to specific data, but it's normally transactional records though, not other reports that you can have as a target. Now, it will have to be like an extra column in Excel that's formula based to have this URL, right? So, and then they just click this basically put together URL and open up those links. So it's not out of the box. You kind of have to put formulas in Excel to have this URL, and then this, I guess, for example, sales order ID is what you want to get into, is a link to a sales order ID. And then when you click it, it'll open up ByDesign into the sales order view. Is that kind of
Yeah,
in
or
line?
for example, GL account and opens up the transactions.
Yes, like a journal entry transaction, right? So so if you have journal entry 1 in one of the columns in Excel, then there's another column for links, let's just say, right? And then when you click it, then well, actually the links itself is put together. It's a URL. I can't remember the syntax, but it's really long. So I can send you that information, Murray. It's a really long one. And then you say, I think the ID equals whatever the journal entry number, and then you can actually see the journal entry when you click.
I don't have the journal entry detail. I just have the account balance.
The account
activity
balance.
and I'm looking for the GL level. So it's not, you're too deep on that. Anyway,
Okay.
we can take it offline, no problem.
Yeah, I'll have to look to see if that's available because I know there are transactional ones and master data that has those specific URLs. They're actually specific URLs to access that. Okay.
Absolutely. We have one other question from Robin Emma. And
Okay.
thank you, Robin and Murray, for your questions. So the question is, when broadcasting reports, is there a way to remove the selections and view sections which detail how the report is built? It appears as a header in the report. I would like to know that as well. So if your answer can be posted in the meeting chat. So if it's something,
and that one was regarding Murray's question that he had seen the journal entries. So if you can post that answer to him, I think everyone would like to know that one.
okay, perfect.
So for the broadcast, we're kind of limited to what we can do there. I think it's mandatory that you do select a criteria. So so if I'm just going to open up one here, and then let's look at what.
Okay.
Yeah, it is mandatory to put it in.
Yeah, well,
And
you
just a quick-
you have to put it in, but when it gets broadcasted, you see that whole header in the broadcast, and it's got, you know.
Oh, I see. You wanna
Yeah,
exclude it?
yeah. I just want people to see what the report is that they're getting. I don't want them to see how I'm filtering that report, and then my name is also on it, right? And so,
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff is I'd rather not have.
I don't know that offhand if we can modify that. And the reason for that is when you export the report, it gives you that information so that you know the info. Like what it's filtered on, right? Because they kind of look different once you pick a different selection, for example. So yeah, so the report name's the same, right? Like it'll just say,
So,
yeah.
a quick one. So, Robin, would you mind if we take this offline and follow up with you?
Yeah.
I can personally quarterback on that. Yeah, just because we have just 1 minute to go and we need to wrap up. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back sharing my screen and we can quickly wrap up here.
I'll stop sharing and then.
Okay, sounds good. No, thank you, Emma, for the walkthrough and for all the questions that came in today. Before we wrap up, I wanted to take a moment to highlight the next steps from here. If you have any questions or you need to continue the conversations, please feel free to connect with VistaVu via VistaVu support, vvusuport@vistavusolutions.com, or speak with your account manager, and we'll be happy to continue the conversation from here. Okay. Also, I wanted to quickly, before we wrap up, highlight the next session of the VistaVu Analytics Week. Our next session is titled Advanced Data Analytics and AI, and it's taking place tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. This session will look beyond standard reporting and into what's possible when your organization needs more advanced analytics capabilities. So please be our guest tomorrow if you can. Okay. All right. I think we've come to the end of this. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for the questions. Thank you as well to Emma and Sonia for the demo and for insights. We hope this session gave you a practical view of standard reporting in SAP Business ByDesign, and we hope to continue the conversation if you have any questions or you need to dig a little bit deeper. And of course, we look forward to seeing you in the next Analytics Week session. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll speak to you later.